Comparisons and associations are helpful when we're buying things. For instance, Frontier Airlines is just incognito spirit, and Red Bull is just coffee for people with loose morals. After seeing the debut of the Crown Signia, I thought, cool, Toyota is gonna make a hybrid Outback. But after giving it a chance, I think the Signia is one of the most unique cars in the mainstream market, especially if they get the price right. To understand why, it's important to think about its theoretical predecessor, the Venza. On the surface, it's a two-row family SUV that's more upscale than a RAV4. So how does the Crown Signia differ? Well, first, it's longer and shorter in height, giving it nearly textbook wagon proportions. I also think this helps distinguish the car more from any Lexus products. And second, the Crown Signia promises to reduce noise, vibration, and harshness in pursuit of a more premium experience. So, did they succeed? Well, let's drive the Signia and find out. For this test, I'll be accompanied by two friends and colleagues, Fenton of Zygreen and Kevin of Jubal and Cars.
And Tyler from Realistic.
Good, close enough. And I apologize for limited angles. This was more off the cuff than I'm used to.
Oh, baby. Sounds like an S2000.
The powertrain's enough. It's not very quick.
It's what, 220 something or something?
220, 240, nothing like any of their old V6s.
Oh, CVT.
Yeah, baby.
e-cvt.
E-cvt.
So we got the planetary gear set in there, which does help it feel a little bit less rubber bandish from like low speeds. And then it has a separate electric motor to like change the ratio really fast. Well, somewhat fast. So there is not a single component that is alike to a regular CVT, but it sounds like it.
I guess that's my only problem with a CVT.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes me want to fall asleep.
It tends to do that. The nice thing is like that right off the line, it does feel more like a regular transmission until you get
the higher revs.
I like the transmission and also the fact that you can get 36 miles per gallon, which is impressive considering it was being ripped around by car reviewers the whole day. The official EPA ratings are similar to that of the old Venza. But just because it feels more linear than a CVT, that doesn't mean it can match a traditional 6 or 8-speed auto in driver engagement, or that it can recreate the natural feeling of having multiple gears. The 2.5-liter inline-4 hybrid setup is capable of pulling a just okay 2,700 pounds, though at least all-wheel drive is standard. It uses a separate electric motor at the rear to help push you through snowy roads, but it is not intended for off-road use. There's not even an off-road mode. I was told by a Toyota representative that the ground clearance was just under 7 inches, a couple shy of an Outback, but he also told me they were benchmarking cars like the Acura RDX, and not the Subaru. After driving it, I see his perspective. So far, this has been very smooth.
Very low NVH.
Yeah, this is a more quiet vehicle than the Venza, and it feels just as forgiving, which is a big compliment. These are only my first impressions, so I'm curious how my thoughts hold up on some of the more nightmarish roads where I'm from. Steering is surprisingly direct, numb as all can be, but well weighted. It doesn't feel completely lifeless. Brakes are firm, body roll is present, but it changes direction quicker than I was
feel
thinking.
a lot of body roll back here.
There is definitely some body roll, but the steering is quicker than I was anticipating. If I was comparing this to an Outback, it feels more athletic. Conversely, looking at a smaller Mazda CX-50 or larger Honda Passport, it's not as poised. But touching back on the brakes, I'd like to add that the regen here was seamless. Compared to even like the regular Crown sedan, I think I prefer how this handles. The Crown sedan, the steering was like a little bit quicker or something. It felt overly eager for how much body roll it had when I was on back roads, but people aren't pushing these cars. So, the powertrain is the same old story, but on-road refinement has been improved. The steering is also what I'd want from a car like this, even if the suspension errs on the soft side. But what about the interior? I think the driving position in here is really good. And the seats too are comfortable, but like...
You don't feel like you're too high up? But you're also obviously not in a sports car.
And I think that helps this feel approachable on the road, like a lifted family sedan, but with a real versatility advantage this time around. At 6'3", I'd be happy road tripping this, even in the back seat, and the cargo area is properly long. Maybe not too tall, but I could easily lay down in it with the seat folded. Moving up front, I have space to stretch out, and the center console doesn't annex the territory of my knees like it did in the Venza. Toyota's new layout is a little polarizing, but highly functional. The big 12-inch screen and digital gauge cluster are standard. Both are simple to use, I don't have any complaints on resolution or response time either, and all have wireless CarPlay. While there are plenty of soft touch points and some nice accents to make this feel expensive, there are some design elements that hurt the aesthetic and family friendliness.
You know, one thing I really dislike being in the back seat is it's not piano black, because it's kind of a different kind of texture. It feels similar in terms of like the smudginess.
Hopefully for the XLE, because this is the limited, I'm hoping that for the lower one, they do kind of dial it back on some of the really reflective, glossy stuff.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Like those bezels on the infotainment I really
It kind of
despise
cheapens it,
that.
and it's not going to age well for sure. This though, what do you this?
This is weird.
It's like a square top.
Something about their design lately
That's not
has
my favorite.
It's
not my
functional. It's not beautiful. Like Mazda
Exactly.
is like, let's make it beautiful and let's like sometimes skip on the build quality here and there, but
Yeah.
at least let's make it look good.
And I think even Honda is
Right.
better than this.
This one's a little bit like cheap and like toyish.
And the turn signal sounds aren't as nice.
Yeah, you and your turn signal sounds, man.
It's
I'm a
those
connoisseur.
details. As subtle as some of them might be, I think to feel luxurious, a car should pay attention to things like tactile feedback for your inputs, along with a cohesive design. Two areas where the Crown Signia could use some improvement in, but I suspect that they may have gotten lazy in these aspects because that makes a stronger argument for buying a Lexus. I do like that they actually retain all your toggles, so they paid a little bit of attention. My question for you guys, what price point would make this attractive, base and high end?
This feels like this one we're sitting in right now. Feels like low to mid 40s.
I think they're gonna charge like 50K. But where's the other Crown priced at? That thing's already in the 40s.
It is. For me personally, I'm writing this sentence without knowing the price. I'm saying it feels like 44 grand for the base with the cloth leather trimmed seats, 2-door proximity entry, big screen, power tailgate, and LED lighting. I feel like that's a fair price for a squished Highlander with one less row but more refinement. I'd say the panoramic roof, heated and ventilated front seats, leather, fancy wheels, and more would demand a 5 or 6 grand premium. 50K is a solid number for what you're getting, but any more than that and I think the cabin starts to fall short and the frugal yet bland powertrain begins to feel cheap. Here's an update since pricing was released an hour ago. It seems like Toyota has kept the Crown relatively grounded. However, the more I think about it, this could use a more basic entry-level trim. This isn't a direct Venza replacement, I get it, but at 45 grand to start, it costs the same as its fully loaded older brother, and it can work itself into Lexus RX territory when topped out. After driving the Toyota Crown Signia, its low NVH, car-like handling, and street looks are refreshing. I like Subarus, Volvos, and Mercedes, but it's nice to have a wagon option that doesn't give off Cliff Bar energy or carry the financial proposition of renting in San Francisco. In the modern North American market, it's original. This is a sharp, family-friendly wagon with low running costs, a premium disposition, and based off of my first impressions, it's a more compelling car than the US spec Crown sedan. While you get plenty for what you pay for, because of the high price of entry, we'll have to see if folks interested in these can afford one to begin with. Thanks for watching. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to the Midwest Automotive Media Association and Toyota for letting me test a Signia, Royal South Toyota in Bloomington, Indiana for letting me drive a Venza, along with Fenton and Kevin for joining in on the fun.